Hey there folks, welcome to Spectrum Pulse. We talk about music, movies, art and culture, and this is Billboard Breakdown. So in the business, this is what we call a slow week. Hell's a big reason why I could get away with covering a week full of country music and not really have to worry about anything else, which meant that very little worth caring about landed on the Hot 100 this week. But you know what, that's fine. I don't mind having a shorter week here, and I might as well enjoy it before the end of June happens and happiness goes right out the window. And if you've seen the hip-hop releases scheduled for June 24th, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. It's not gonna be good. But enough doom and gloom there. Let's take a look at our top 10, where, again, very little has changed. One Dance by Drake, Kyla, and WizKid sits at the very top thanks to huge streaming, but it's got airplay and sales now enough to be a solid presence for some time. And while Panda by Designer might be wavering on airplay and shrinking in sales, the streaming is still so huge it doesn't even matter. It's got number 2 on lock. At this point, it doesn't even matter that Justin Timberlake is dominant with airplay and sales with Can't Stop the Feeling, although it's not selling what it was, but it's trailing so hard in streaming that it's not moving any higher than number 3. What did advance a bit was Don't Let Me Down by the Chainsmokers featuring Day at number 4, which rode considerable airplay gains, decent sales, and even a streaming boost to overtake its nearest competition, Work From Home by Fifth Harmony and Ty Dolla $ign at number 5. At this case, ruling YouTube isn't quite enough, as sales, airplay, and streaming are all starting to shrink a little bit. It might start falling out of the top 10 sooner than you might think, but will it fall faster than 7 Years by Lucas Graham, which has somehow held on to number 6 thanks to picking up a bit of streaming and better than expected sales to compensate for plummeting airplay? Well, only time will tell here, but I expect it will probably get overtaken by This Is What You Came For by Calvin Harris and Rihanna, which rose up to number 7 on good sales, streaming traction, and oddly hesitant airplay gains. Still enough to push it past I Took a Pill and Ibiza by Meg Posner at number 8, which despite gains on YouTube and streaming, didn't quite have enough sales or strong enough airplay to avoid the slip here. It's up against Needed Me by Rihanna at number 9, which has so much streaming that it barely matters that the radio has been slow to catch up and sales are pretty much non-existent. And on the flip side, we've got Just Like Fire by Pink holding steady at number 10 thanks to sales and significant airplay traction. Shame that both songs are just so damn mediocre overall. And on that pleasant note, our losers and dropouts. Now, the only ones in the latter category that anyone would really care about is If It Ain't Love by Jason Derulo, Called It, and 9 by Drake. But a larger story comes in watching Drake lose en masse. Hype faded down to 69, Child's Play mercifully fell to 72, Still Here went to 73, Grammys with Future bowed down to 77, and Feel No Way slid down to 91. And in contrast to last week, country didn't do well either, though you could definitely make the argument that it makes more sense given that most are reaching the end of their projected runs, with Snapback by Old Dominion falling down to 70, Mind Reader by Dustin Lynch slipping down to 87, Somewhere on a Beach by Dierks Bentley losing after its boost to 57, and Came Here to Forget by Blake Shelton dropping down to 54. Outside of those, the rest are a real mixed bag. Youth by Troye Sivan falls to 100 as its newest revival runs out of steam, Moolah by Young Greatness loses traction to 98, Law by Yo Gotti featuring E40 drops down to 94, and The Sound of Silence by Disturbed slips down to 66. Frankly, I'm amazed it lasted this long and might have close to enough points to land on the year-end Hot 100 for 2016, which nobody could have predicted, and I'm actually kind of excited about because I actually have grown to like it quite a bit. Now for our gains, on the other hand, they're a lot easier to explain, and they're a lot more depressing. The best of them, they're pop country tracks like Peter Pan by Kelsey Ballerini rising up to 81, or From the Ground Up by Dan Shea gaining big up to 59. But with them comes Make You Miss Me by Sam Hunt to 82, and I'm honestly not sure if that's a net positive, especially if on the pop side we also got a boost for Sit Still Look Pretty by Dea up to 86. Outside of those, we got the debut from Selena Gomez, Kill 'Em With Kindness picking up to 52, because of course it did, and Unsteady by X Ambassadors rising up to 48. But the bigger story comes in our solitary returning entry, Fathers Stretch My Hands Part 1 by Kanye West and Kid Cudi. It only ran at 97, but apparently this along with Part 2 are intended as the singles from the life of Pablo. And I have to wonder why, because in the latter case, Panda has effectively reduced Kanye's sampling of it to a disjointed afterthought. And why not release a fully formed song like Real Friends and Ty Dolla $ign, who is bigger than ever these days, or No Parties in LA with Kendrick Lamar, or even put a full single push behind Famous, which had Rihanna on it at least? As much as I've ripped on Drake's management in the past, for Kanye West it appears far worse, and outside of sheer sheer star power, I can't imagine any of these songs doing all that well, if I'm being honest with you. But moving away from that, since we have so few returning entries, I think it's time to bring back an intermittent segment to talk about a song that's currently tearing its way up the European charts and yet has a bizarre lineage in and of itself. So for our world hit this week,
no other thing has as precious to and a heart that beats and a heart that's true. Something that you got to know, they say.
Okay, so you're gonna need to follow me on this. Like so many songs that tend to get big across the UK charts and the European charts, this is a remix, this time from French DJ and producer Kungs. Good luck finding much info on him, as his YouTube channel has 2 videos, both this song, and his SoundCloud only has 12 tracks, but this is his first hit, a reinterpretation of a single from an Australian funk band, Cookin on 3 Burners, with guest vocals from an uncredited soul singer, Kylie August. The combination of all these elements contribute to This Girl, and I have to say, I really kinda like it. It's got a pretty sweet guitar rollock that builds off some great horns that ebbs in and out with a ton of groove that the bouncier beat actually complements pretty well. And hell, the lyrics are pretty slick too, as a girl rebuffs the guy who keeps buying her stuff in order to win her over, when that's not really the way to her heart. She's more than that, and that's a good sentiment. I might prefer the bass line getting a little bit more texture, or with the hand clap to not quite feel as stiff, but this definitely falls towards the better side of modern electronic tracks, and it's got some real groove to it. So yeah, definitely recommended. Check this out. But now on to our regular entries, starting off with number 75, Nothing Is Promised by Mike Will Made It and Rihanna.
Ain't none of this shit promise, ain't none of this promise. Ain't none of this shit certain, ain't none of it certain. And none of us perfect, I hope it was worth it.
You know, I think it's fair to say that Mike Will Made It might be getting left behind in popular music. I mean, think about it. In late 2012 and throughout 2013, he was inescapable, with a style of bleak, heavy production that was embraced and co-opted by Kanye West and Travis Scott before spreading everywhere, from Lil Wayne and Future to Miley Cyrus. And yet, trends in hip-hop production change in record time, and a year later, DJ Mustard rushed in to fade out even faster. But the damage to Mike Will Made It's career seems to be already done. After the abortion that was the Ray Shrimmer debut, Shrem Life, it seemed like Mike Will Made It couldn't catch a break in 2015, with his most number of credits showing up on Miley Cyrus and her dead pets. Yikes. Now, this year he seems prepared to make a bit of a comeback, netting production on Beyonce's Formation and a few credits on the upcoming Shrem Life 2, but to finally get a debut album of his own off the ground called Ransom 2, he recruited Rihanna for the lead-off single. Now, they've worked together before in her 2012 album Unapologetic on the song Pour It Up, a track, for the record, which is absolutely terrible, with some turgid, terrible synth choices, but this song is originally intended for Auntie, but got rejected and now being released as a lead-off single for him. And honestly, I kinda get why it got rejected. Not only does it not fit in with Auntie's arc or themes as your standard flexing anthem, it's also not all that good. The synths are hollow and bleak, the beat is by the numbers bass and sandy hi-hat skitters, and Rihanna sounds oddly isolated in the mix with nothing to really support her. Granted, nothing that she's saying is remotely interesting either. Empty bragging where the money seems to be the overwhelming focus, where she'll even hug and swim in the money like Scrooge McDuck here. I'm supposed to find this interesting? Cause really, I really don't. Number 34, Treat You Better by Shawn Mendes.
Then he can, and any girl like you deserves a gentleman. Tell me why are we wasting time on all your wasted crown when you should be with me instead? I know I can treat you better than he can.
You know, the more I listen to Shawn Mendes, the more I wonder what the hell I saw in him initially. Because I remember really liking his song Something Big last year, and yet ever since then, every song has shown a consistent, steady decline in quality. I'm inclined to blame studio hacks like Teddy Geiger who are co-writing his music, but the problem seems to run a fair bit deeper than that. So does Treat You Better give me any hints as to why? Well, the instrumentation is a step up from Stitches, taking the low acoustic rollick and adding some breezy but punchy percussion that might be a tad too compressed, but generally has some decent atmosphere. But the problems here are twofold. First is Shawn Mendes himself, more specifically on the chorus. I have no idea why he's trying for this Caribbean inflection on the final words of the hook, but it sounds incredibly out of place and not remotely something that he can pull off, which might as well be the story of the lyrics on this song too. Because in the grand tradition of white guy with acoustic guitar songs, we have a song where Shawn Mendes is trying to convince a girl to dump her boyfriend and get with him. Now, in general, I really don't like these kind of songs, mostly because they feel manipulative as all hell, but at their best, you need to have a singer with the swagger and raw charisma to appear as a more attractive character, or they're writing to add some moral complexity to the situation in the framing. Shawn Mendes, he doesn't do either here. An already pretty hollow song feels all the more forgettable and frustrating and kind of obnoxious. I wish I could say that he was better than this, but honestly, at this point, I'm not so sure, and I'd probably skip it. And finally, number 18, For Free by DJ Khaled featuring Drake.
Almost had his superpowers, last 223,000 hours, and it's cause I'm off of CC, and I'm off the Hennessy. And like your boy from Compton said, you know this dick ain't free.
So do you know that guy in your circle of friends who might not be the brightest, but somehow manages to know everyone, including people that he probably shouldn't know, and then throw these kick-ass parties that he can't possibly afford? That, to me, is DJ Khaled. A guy who's never made music that's all that interesting, or all that good, but somehow has managed to build relationships with seemingly everyone in mainstream hip-hop, and parlay that into a larger-than-life persona that seems more and more like a joke all the time. And sure, I can admire his networking skills, but when it comes to music, he's rarely an interesting presence as an artist or a producer. So does that change on the biggest single he's released since? Well, the last time he worked with Drake on I'm On One 5 years ago? Honestly, this is a below average Drake track where any interesting lines he has are cribbed from other people. The opening bars are interpolated from Too Short, the next few are a subtle jab at Kendrick Lamar, the implication is that the song is directed at a girl who is Kendrick's that Drake is now screwing, and the entire premise of the song is an Akin-Yell interpretation where apparently Drake is so good in bed that this girl wonders that she should be paying for Drake's penis. And in typical Drake fashion, the entire song is loaded with struggle bars and bad implications. Like where in the second verse he says, he's not putting any pressure on this girl, but every bar around it is implied pressure to toe a certain line with him. It doesn't help matters that the production is painfully weak. A scratchy rattle with a jagged fragment of melody and a deeper beat that never really evolves or switches up. And as much as DJ Khaled shouts that this is another anthem, I don't remotely buy that. It's tepid, it's lacking in punchlines, delivery, and instrumentation, and it's only catchy until you listen to, well, pretty much anything else. In other words, probably would skip it most days. And also in other words, wow, this week's selection of new songs is just crap. And I can't even in good conscience give out a best of the week here, because none of these songs even remotely pass as passable. Worst of the week is going to Shawn Mendes with Treat You Better. Wow, that song pisses me off with every single additional listen. But best? No, I can't do it. If I didn't have rules otherwise, it'd go to the world hit from Kungs and Cookin on 3 Burners This Girl. But otherwise, folks, let's get some better stuff than this, and let's hope for better next week. But till then, I'm Mark. You're watching Billboard Breakdown on Spectrum Pulse, and I will see you next time.